up in the gang unit because I love working gangs. So then I went to Compton. I got to work my own neighborhood, Willowbrook, and I got known for being the guy who works gangs. I used to describe what I did as a police officer as being the referee at an incredibly violent hockey game. I came from Compton. I came from a very poor neighborhood. Some of my best friends became gang members. They became prison gang members. That could have been me. If circumstances were different, maybe I could have been one of them. In 1966, after I graduated from high school, I went into the military, and the military put me through a battery of tests. It was the military who decided that I should be a military policeman. When I came out of Vietnam, I went to Fort Pachuco, Arizona. I was by then a sergeant, and they had a program where you could get out of the military early if you enlisted in the LAPD or LA County Sheriff's Department. My mother and father were anti-Pachuco. My father, he was in the military in the 40s, and all my uncles. So this idea that it was a rite of passage and all Latinos, were involved in this, no. 90% of the Latinos in the communities I know, they joined the Army, they got jobs, they went to school, things like that.
Some of the young people are doing bad things, but most of them are not. They're just grouping together. But eventually, if the police start messing with you and start detaining you, holding you for little things, eventually you start getting records, and pretty soon you become in the gang.
Chicano culture, it came from youth. We have to understand that those pachucos, they weren't like grown men and women, They were kids, so it came from kids.
If you were there at that time and you asked my uncles or my father, they're panderos. They're, my grandma called them marihuanos. Don't hang around with those pieces of trash. By the way, the zoot suit is a open sign of rebellion against the United States.
Did everyone walk around, orale, this kind? No, they didn't. There's no evidence. As a matter of fact, the play Zoot Suit, which revolves around the 30th Street kids, they didn't speak Galo. They didn't speak Spanish. These were Americanized Mexican Americans.
This is the 7.62 machine gun system, known in the Army as the XM6 kit.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. I have asked for this television time tonight to report to you on our most difficult and urgent problem, the war in Vietnam.
When I was there at Travis Air Base, I was there in the bed watching on August 29th, 1970, those riots going on in L.A. Well, being a soldier, but my political thinking had changed. I said, I know how to deal with those sheriffs. I know how to deal with them. Yeah, just give me a gun. I changed. The war's at home. Now the war's here, and these people are attacking our people, so it's my duty to attack them. That was what I was thinking as a soldier.
One of my friends in the Army, he grew up with me, he went into Ralph J. Bunch Junior High School with me and all that. He's a lifer in the military, and then one day he came home on leave, and I went to go pick him up at the airport. And when he got in the car, I tell him, "Hey, Johnny, I got a 9mm on my side, I got a 45 under my seat, and there's a 380 on my right leg, and there's a 38 in the glove box." And he looks at me and goes, "Richard, you're paranoid." I was, right? I was ready for that fight. If it was gonna come, I was gonna be ready.
our communities were especially impacted. Poor white as well. Working class people were getting really hit with Vietnam. Vietnam was the war that brought more conscience, I think, to those issues than any other war.
You know, to me, especially as a Vietnam veteran, it's difficult for someone to admit that they fought for nothing. We fought for nothing, and we lost a lot of people, and the Vietnamese lost a lot of people. 3 million people. Forget about them.
I don't recognize these streets I used to call my own. Feel the days are getting longer as the anger grows and grows, and I'm tired. I'm just so damn tired. You hear the people in the streets. We're all out.
The anti-war Chicano movement became a catalyst for a rallying point for other causes, such as the Black Civil Rights movement, the anti-war movement, the hippies and all of that, you know, the counterculture movement.
What I disliked was the agitators who would come into the community and agitate the locals. And when the time came when confrontation would occur, guess where they were? They were somewhere else. And you know what? They usually weren't from our neighborhood, right? They were some rich kid in college, you know, a privileged guy who was coming down to the neighborhood to create a problem and then leave. Some of these guys were backed by Red China and Russia.
So we're building that conference, and we're also hoping to invite all of you to come on Sunday at 3 p.m. at the corner of Clifton and Sherman at the George I. Sanchez Center. And again, I remind you that most of us will have to think about what this means, because it is true. I feel very much that they do not know the difference. They don't see different thing when they look at Mexicano or Chicano. They see the same thing. And these two things are integrally tied together.
In the 60s and 70s, there was a very clear distinction between Mexican Americans and Chicanos. Chicanos were those who self-consciously embraced a politicized agenda and identity. And we made a very clear line between us Chicano and those Mexican Americans.
I would say Chicano was a term that was used a lot in my household. My pops, you know, growing up in that era, I would say, you know, being real young in the 60s.
To me, growing up, Chicano and Mexicano, I didn't even know there were two different words. We used them interchangeably. Okay, but then it became politicized.
Chicanos, the term was already used in the streets. And I know even when I was growing up in Watts and eventually the east side, the San Gabriel Valley, you know, before the Chicano movement, we were calling each other Chicanos.
For me, Chicano growing up meant being two things at the same time and not enough of either one.
Born in America with Mexican parts, right? So we're trying to be American, but we have this big influence of Mexico and our heritage, our relatives, trying to combine the two.
I think now that we have social media, is now you see how many homies really aren't Mexican. When I met my wife, she didn't know I was from Central America. I think she found out after we got married. or she found out maybe a few years after we actually were together. I consider myself Chicano, and there's nobody gonna tell me different. If I would have never came out and said, hey, I'm from Honduras, you would assume, yeah, Gil's Mexican. There's a lot of us out there, but it's not that I'm trying to be Mexican. It's not that I'm trying to be anything else. I'm a guy from North Hollywood that, considers himself Chicano because that's what I am.